Look at that cruiser, that cruise ship, and you got a sukkah on top. If they get a hold of this, the boat companies, they're going to copy this model, no?
They should have used regular
Oh, when they crossed to the yard, this would have been the way to do it. I hear.
Instead of the top of the...
Right. What do you hold about these sukkahs? You think they're good or no good? Any problem with these sukkahs?
Mishnah says kasher.
The Mishnah says kasher, it's kosher. Machlekes. It's kosher. It's a kosher. What will be the negative? What will be the negative? What's the Mishnah trying to point out to us? Oh, very good. Let's talk about the first case. Just looking at the picture. The sukkah on top of the wagon, there's a problem in its kvias. Right? It's very arai-ish. It's extremely arai, very temporary type. I'm sorry? So let's take away, even though I don't like this picture, by the way, take away the animals. Pretend the animals are not hitched to the wagon, it's just a wagon sitting there. It's very similar to the case, if you remember, of the bed. A bed is a movable item. So when you make a sukkah using a bed to support it, we had a problem if your name is Rabbi Yehuda, that needs a sukkah to have some sort of kviyas. The bed's a problem because beds are movable. So this sukkah as well, on a wagon is a movable thing. We don't view this as being so permanent. So there's a possible problem of kviyas in the sukkah. What? The floor is not moving, but the wagon moves. No, the bed moves, and therefore the sukkah moves as well.
Right, but here is the floor is fixed. Meaning it's moving, but the floor stays the floor.
So Yecheskel is tining. I don't want to. You're tining something very deep, and some Rishonim want to say this. Why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda here in the Mishnah argue? So some Rishonim want to say maybe this is better than the bed. Maybe this is more fixed. I don't want to get into all the reasons you just said, but you're onto something. It could be more fixed than the bed. But Tesis goes, and a lot of Rishonim go, we're going to go like that, that Rabbi Yehuda, who holds of having a more fixed sukkah, this is the same problem of a sukkah on a bed. But we don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Tana of our Mishnah is okay, even though this is very arai-ish, it's very temporary, we're okay with arai. So the sukkah is kosher. Okay, so let's take out Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would not agree potentially to this case. However, it's on page Yud Aleph, Shua. Page Yud Aleph in the pictures. It's earlier, because it came up earlier in the Masechta. However, it is kosher. What about the boat? The boat is a different issue. The boat is much more fixed. Because once you're on that boat, it's like a whole world. And therefore, it's considered very curious. What's the problem? If you look, it's very windy. It's very high up. A festa wind comes, a big wind, it's going to knock the sukkah out. So it issues wind. Not because the boat moves, because the boat looks like its own island.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
It's a big boat. So they say it's a svina, it's a big boat. It's a big boat, it's not like a little raft or something like that. It's a big boat. So the question is...
Dafka Barosh, I guess.
Dafka Barosh, right, very good. The rosh of the boat. The problem is a wind issue. And still, it's kosher, even though it's very arai type of sukkah, very temporary, it's still going to be kosher. So we have two cases of our Mishnah. We have the rosh ha'agola, top of the wagon, sukkah on the top of a boat, and the Mishnah says it's kosher, even though they are somewhat arai. We're okay with arai, as long as it's not crazy arai. Can't be flimsy. Needs some sort of sukkah, but we're okay if they're a little arai. Therefore, it's kosher. The oilin law b'yomtiv. The Mishnah continues with something that has no shaykhs to hilchas sukkah, and says something else. You're allowed to go into this sukkah, allowed to go up into the sukkah on Yom Tov. Take a look at these sukkahs. Imagine I told you, you're sailing on this cruise ship. The halach is, if you're there on Yom Tov, you're allowed to go into the sukkah on Yom Tov. Or let's say you're on the wagon, you're allowed to go into the sukkah part on Yom Tov. Why not? Why not? What's the chiddush? Of course you could. If you're on a boat, now it might be a question to go on a boat on Shabbos or Yom Tov. We're not talking about that. The guy's on the boat, let's say. He's there for a few days. He's there for a cruise ship, for Yom Tov. Why can he not go into the sukkah?
It's a travel, by the way, long days on boat.
Yeah, it's a travel, right, for months at a time. Yeah. What's wrong with going into the sukkah? And what's wrong with going on the wagon? Now, take away the animals. I don't like the picture of the animals because could run into an issue of animals moving you and there's an issue of animals working on Yom Tov. So let's just say it doesn't have to be animals. But there's nothing wrong with going into that sukkah. So why does the Mishnah say, by the way, you could also go in on Yom Tov? Now when we say Yom Tov, sukkah says 7 days. We're not talking about Shmini Atzeres, which is the 8th day. So only the first day of Yom Tov, there's a question whether you should go in or not. Could be a problem of doing malacha or some sort of issue on Yom Tov. So we're saying you could go in on the first day of Yom Tov. Obviously, Chol Hamoed you could go in. Right? Chol Hamoed, most malachas, a lot of malachas are mutter. But the point is, you can even go in on the first day of Sukkot. What's the chiddush? There is no chiddush. It's only going to be saying this. The Mishnah wrote this to contrast it where you can't. In the coming up cases of the Mishnayos, of this Mishnah, we're going to say cases where you're not allowed to go in on Yom Tov. So we say it now here, even though there's no chiddush. What?
A boat I hear is no chiddush. A wagon, maybe it's
Why? If there's no animals, why can't you go on the wagon on Yom Tov?
something like this. I don't know. Maybe it's also maybe it's more.
You're not moving it. You're just going on
Maybe
the.
it's muksa. I don't know. Maybe you
You
can't touch it.
So Shabbos is saying maybe I don't know a Hilchos Yom Tov thing. I hear.
On the trail and judge.
Here, but yeah, if you live in a,
Slide before, probably.
it's set aside. It's your sukkah, just on a high, it's on a high platform. So you could go in. You could go in on Yom Tov. There's no chiddush. No chiddush. Okay. Continues the Mishnah. Let's say you put the sukkah b'roisha ilon on the top of a tree. You made a tree house. You made walls. You put down a floor, and you made a sukkah on top of your tree. You'd see you're like the first. If there's any guy going to do it, you're the first guy to do it here. So you have no halachas. If you want to make a tree house sukkah, we have no picture of this. We're going to have a picture coming up of something similar. Well, there's a picture of. Okay, you know what? You can take a look at it. It's really a coming up case, but we can look at it anyways. Look at page Lamed Beis. Picture Lamed Tes, but don't look at the picture too closely because that's not really our case. It just gives you a little bit of a feeling.
As long as the whole thing is on the tree.
Right, we're going to get to a little bit more. So this is totally, you got a tree, don't look at the whole case. But the sukkah is on top of the tree. You fully built it with 100% of the walls, with a floor. That's case one. Oh, it says the Mishnah onwards, oh, al gabe gomel. We're on top of a camel. There's no picture for this. I'm sorry, I checked. I looked through all the back. I couldn't find the picture. So the Mishnah Berurah says that you made this sukkah between its humps of the camel, right? Saturday the camel, whatever, how many humps? In between the humps, he made 4 walls, and you made a sukkah like that.
Wide enough?
What?
There's
There's enough space. Yeah, you have Zayin Fachim. Yeah. And the guy sits in between the humps for his sukkah. What's the story with that? Says the Mishnah, Kshera.
Can't sleep there.
Wow.
So you happen to be where the Gemara is talking about your discussion. Okay? Very good.
Wow. The princesses and these things in the desert they used to have.
Like these canopy type of things. You like trap.
Yeah, huge things on that.
Guys holding it.
That's not something we
This
can
was
do
just
also.
an ancient RV.
Yeah.
It's just RV here.
Oh, yes.
So it was on the top of the tree and the top of a camel. What's the halacha? Kshera. Sukkah's kosher. Okay, fine. Comes along, Hilchos Yom Tov sugya now. Ve'ein eilun la b'Yom Tov. You cannot go into it on Yom Tov. You're in trouble. You're not allowed to go into your sukkah. There's only one day of sukkahs. That's talked about in Eretz Yisrael. There's one day of sukkahs. You cannot go in the first day. Why not? What Hilchos Yom Tov problem? So we know a rule. You're not allowed to use a tree on Yom Tov. Not allowed to go on a tree. You can't really move around a tree. Even kids, I mean, obviously a tiny kid, but the kid's getting a little older, you should say, don't climb the tree, things like that. Why? Because you might come to break off a branch. On purpose. You might break off a branch, and that would be a problem of tlisha, of removing something, kaitzer, removing something from its source, and therefore, we don't touch trees on Shabbos. We don't, not touch, but not mishtamish, we don't use trees. What?
Even if you do by mistake, you probably have that, right?
Right, I mean, by mistake, you always have that with a lot of things on Shabbos, but if we're talking about, on purpose, so you're not allowed to go in on the tree. What about a camel? You're also not allowed to go onto a camel on Yom Tov. The reason is because you can't use animals. Why can't you use animals on Yom Tov or Shabbos? The reason is because you might come to, right, you want the camel to move. You might come to whip it, so you'll crack off a branch while you're on your thing. You'll crack off a branch, and this way you'll hit the camel to walk. So because of those reasons, we don't go on animals, we don't go on trees on Yom Tov. So you have a beautiful sukkah, and Hilchos sukkah, kosher. You cannot go in on the first day of Yom Tov. Al Hilchos Yom Tov. Okay, continues on the Mishnah. Shtayim be'ilam v'achas bidei adam. I'm just reading the words and I'll explain it. Shtayim bidei adam v'achas be'ilam kshera ve'in eilun la b'Yom Tov. Let's take a look at the pictures to understand this case. Very interesting case, actually. It's page Lamed Beis, picture Lamed Tes.
Now we can look at it.
What?
Now
Yeah, now you can look at it and appreciate it. So what happened was, the guy made a sukkah on a tree. He built everything himself. He built the walls. He built the floor. The problem is, if you have a sukkah on a tree, if you remove that tree, the sukkah is going to fall, right? You really need that tree for stability. So what the guy did was, he built one wall into the ground, like it's fixed into the ground. It's being supported by the ground, not the tree. Only one. You see, only one's going all the way to the floor. The other sides are just using the tree for support, and of course, the floor is just the tree. Okay, is there anything wrong with the sukkah? Al Hilchas sukkah? No, this sukkah is 100% fine. It's a great sukkah. Reisha Elon, totally fine. What we're going to get into is a Yom Tov sugya. What about going into this sukkah on Yom Tov? So just, if you leave your hand there, just go back to the Mishnah for a second. Just reading the words inside. Shtayim be'ilon. You made 2 mechitzas. The point here is mechitzas. You made 2 mechitzas on the tree. V'achas b'dei adam. And one of the mechitzas, when we say b'dei adam, the whole sukkah was made by a man. But one's being supported by what man did. The other ones are being supported by the tree, which is not man-made. One of the walls is being supported by a man-made trick of having the wall go all the way to the ground. That's case 1. Case 2 is oy or shtayim b'dei adam. 2, you made 2 walls b'dei adam. Look at the picture now. If you take a look back to the pictures, picture mem. Here, what the guy did was he made 2 supporting walls. You see that? So one in the back there, one on the left side. He made 2 which are man-made supports, and he did 1 using the trees being held to support is supporting the sukkah. 2 are man-made supports, and 1 is the tree supporting it. What's the halacha in that case? The Mishnah says, just starting it again, Shtayim be'ilon, 2, you're using the ilon as support. V'achas b'dei adam, and 1, you're using a man-made support. Oy shtayim b'dei adam, or 2 were made from a person to support the walls and the floor of the sukkah. V'achas b'ilon, the 1's using the tree as your support. Says the Mishnah, Kshera. The sukkah is totally kosher. V'ein oilon lo b'yom tov, but you cannot go into there on Yom Tov. Why not? Because even though you're not touching the tree, you're being supported by the tree. And the halacha of not being mishtamish, not using a tree on Yom Tov, applies even when the tree is supporting the sukkah. I'm not touching the tree, but I'm being in a sukkah that is being supported by a tree. And that is not allowed on Yom Tov. So I can only go in on the 2nd day or 3rd day of Yom Tov. I can't go in on the 1st day of Yom Tov. But, continues the Mishnah, let's say it's sholish b'dei adam. Whoa. Now he did 3 walls that are supported, and the floor is pretty much supported by man-made supports. The achaz be'ilon, the 1's using the tree. Then, kshera, the sukkah is kosher. The oilon lo b'yom tov, and you can even go in on Yom Tov. You can even go in on Yom Tov. Why? The Mishnah ends off with the klal that gives you the rule. Zeh klal, this is the rule. Kol sheyinot la'ilon. Anytime if you would remove the tree, the chayla bifnei atzmo, and the sukkah will be able to stand by itself. Kshera, the sukkah is kosher. The oilon lo b'yom tov, and you could go into the sukkah on Yom Tov. So kshera is not the chiddush. All the sukkahs were kosher. The Mishnah just says kshera again. But the point is, you could go in on Yom Tov. And take a look at the last picture. Picture Mem Aleph on page Lamed Gimel, and there you have your beautiful sukkah. It's being supported mostly by man-made supports going into the ground. Totally man-made. One side, you're using the tree. If you would remove that stump, whatever you call that thing, would the tree stay? It would. It would stay there. And therefore, that sukkah is 100%, it's for sure kosher, they're all kosher. You can even go in on Yom Tov. It's not viewed like you're being mishtamish with the tree on Yom Tov. Now, happens to be, Rashi points out, whenever we say you can't go in on Yom Tov, you could go on Chol Moed. But this is interesting, and this is a big tumult, we're not going to get into it. You could even go in on Sukkot itself. You were over Nisa D'Rabbanan, but you did get the mitzvah of Sukkot. You shouldn't. You should not go in. But if a guy taka went on a tree and sat in the sukkah is kosher. Oh, so there's a big question, mitzvah above there. It's a big sugya. Is this a problem, mitzvah above there? Why is it not mitzvah? What? Sorry? Well,
This is just like the refrain from doing it there.
yeah.
It's on both there. This is like.
But once Chazal made that gather, when you actively go against it, you're doing an Avera, and you're getting a mitzvah at the same time, shouldn't that be a problem? The Rashi does say that you do get the mitzvah as well. But just to wrap up the Mishnah, to wrap it up, we have, first of all, Chiddush. We start off with two sukkahs, one's on top of a wagon, and one's on top of a boat. Our issue there is they're very temporary in nature. They have an arai issue. But we hold that arai is okay. Arai is okay. Yehuda might not be okay with this, but we're okay with it. Either because the wagon moves around, it's meant to move around, even if it's not actually moving. And by the boat, it's very windy. It's on top of a boat. There's no hills surrounding it. The thing's going to potentially fly away. So, no, it's still kosher. And about going in on Yom Tov, of course, that's not even a question, but the Mishnah just says that anyways, because we're going to say cases where you can. The next cases where one's on top of a tree, totally fine. One's on top of a camel, also good, it's kosher. But the point is, the chiddush is, you can't go in on Yom Tov. A hilchos Yom Tov issue, because you can't use a tree or use an animal. And the last case was, when you're using the tree to support the sukkah, depending how much you're supporting it, that's going to define if it's kosher or not. If you taka need the tree, you cannot go in there because you're viewed as if you're using the tree. And if you are not using the tree pretty much, even if some of it's being supported, if you'd be able to remove the tree and the sukkah would still stay there, the sukkah would be totally fine. One last thing to point out is interesting. Let's say, ready for this? Let's say he had two walls, not three, two walls opposite each other. Okay? In the picture, it's usually like one against the other. If you had two opposite each other and a little bit using the tree, the sukkah would also be fine. You don't need three. It's not a part of three mechitzas, three tfanas. It's not a halacha. Just standing by itself. So even if the walls are what do you call this? When they're opposite each other, just not one. When it's like this, then the sukkah will fall if not. But if they're parallel to each other, then the sukkah will stay up there regardless. Sure. Why is it relevant? What does that mean?